When I noticed Lawrence, my brother-in-law, holding his equipment with that determined look, I couldn't help myself. I had to jump in and lend a hand. Today, I'm sharing a story that flipped my marriage completely upside down. It all began when my husband, Anthony, finally revealed a desire he'd been hiding for years. That confession didn't just alter our relationship, it transformed everything about how we connected. The spark it reignited was one I hadn't even realized we were missing. My name's Jennifer, I'm 34 years old, and I live in Grand Island, a picturesque, family-friendly city in Nebraska. My husband Anthony, a 36-year-old entrepreneur, and I have been married for 7 years. Our life together is idyllic. We own a cozy home near the Oasis Island Water Park, a peaceful neighborhood where everything seems calm and serene. To say we're comfortable would be an understatement. Financial worries? Not part of our vocabulary. My daily routine feels like something out of a dream. Mornings start early for me, filled with little gestures to make my husband's day brighter. I take joy in preparing breakfast just the way he likes it. Then it's time for myself, hitting the gym to stay fit, and catching up with friends over coffee. These small meetups keep me grounded and in touch with what's happening around town. Meanwhile, Anthony dives headfirst into his hectic workday. He owns an electronic cigarette company, and while his job demands long hours, it also allows us to enjoy a life free from major stress. From the outside looking in, our marriage might seem like perfection. Of course, like any couple, we've had the occasional disagreement. Still, our bond always feels solid. Anthony's family, on the other hand, leads an entirely different kind of life. They're based in Rapid City, South Dakota, a place known for Mount Rushmore and honestly their affluent lifestyle. Each of them is successful in their own right, running businesses or climbing the career ladder without financial concerns slowing them down. While I get along well with Anthony's family, I wouldn't say we're particularly close. We rarely see each other, typically only at year-end celebrations, and even those are hit or miss. Family gatherings just aren't their thing. Instead, they prefer jet-setting to exotic locales, or spending holidays in luxurious hideaways. It's very different from the family traditions I grew up with, but I've adapted over time. The exception to this distant dynamic is Lawrence, Anthony's twin brother. They're so alike it used to confuse me, same height, identical smiles, even similar mannerisms. Lawrence, however, is nothing like my husband when it comes to lifestyle. While Anthony is the dependable homebody, Lawrence is a professional American soccer player, constantly traveling, partying, and enjoying the single life. Commitment isn't his style, and he's made it clear he relishes his independence. It was during a casual weekend barbecue that everything changed. As usual, Anthony and I were soaking in the peacefulness of a lazy Saturday, cherishing the rare chance to unwind together. Just as we were settling in, a message popped up on Anthony's phone. "Bro, I'm in town for a game. Coming by to see you." Anthony's face lit up like a kid on Christmas morning. The bond between him and Lawrence has always been unshakable, despite their vastly different lives. Naturally, I was thrilled too. Lawrence's visits always brought a lively energy to our home. Little did I know, this visit would unearth a secret that would completely reshape everything I thought I knew about my marriage. Lawrence planned to arrive early in the afternoon, and Anthony, brimming with his usual excitement, suggested we keep things simple, a cozy barbecue, just the three of us. I agreed right away, loving the idea of a relaxed get-together without the rush of daily life. As we prepared for the day, I couldn't help but imagine their laughter filling the house, recounting old memories and sharing the latest updates from their lives. Anthony wasted no time. He quickly ordered everything we needed: meat, beer, and charcoal, through a friend who owns a butcher shop. Within minutes, the delivery was at our doorstep, and we were ready to go. I turned on some upbeat music while we worked side by side, setting up the backyard. These moments of preparation together were always fun. Even before Lawrence arrived, the energy in the house was light and cheerful, as if the party had already started. Just as we were putting the finishing touches on the setup, Anthony's phone buzzed. It was Lawrence, letting us know he was already at the door. Anthony, unable to hide his excitement, practically sprinted to greet him. I lingered in the kitchen for a moment, thinking about how long it had been since we'd seen Lawrence, almost 2 years. Yet his image was still so vivid in my memory. Lawrence was like a more vibrant version of Anthony. Though they were identical twins, Lawrence's physique was sharper, his style more polished, and his demeanor effortlessly charismatic. His adventurous lifestyle seemed to keep him energized, while Anthony's more grounded personality showed in his calm demeanor. Despite their differences, the bond between them was undeniable. When Anthony opened the door, their embrace erased all the time that had passed. Laughter immediately filled the house as Lawrence stepped inside, exuding his signature charm. His first stop, me. "Jennifer, you're looking as stunning as ever. It's like time hasn't touched you," he said with a grin. I smiled, a little flustered by the compliment, but thanked him. Lawrence had always been straightforward, so his comments didn't surprise me, though they did catch me off guard now and then. Anthony wasted no time pulling Lawrence over to the grill. They launched into animated conversation, diving into Lawrence's recent travels and the adventures he'd been on. Sitting at a nearby table with a cold beer, I couldn't help but smile at the sight of their laughter and camaraderie. Watching them, I was reminded of how special their connection was. It wasn't just the shared memories. It was an unspoken understanding that only twins seemed to have. After a while, Lawrence turned his attention to me, striking up a casual conversation. "So Jennifer, what's new? How's life been treating you? And when's little Anthony Jr. arriving?" he teased with a playful smirk. I laughed lightly, shaking my head. "Oh Lawrence, now's definitely not the right time for kids. Anthony's so wrapped up in work, and I don't want to raise a child essentially on my own, you know?" He nodded thoughtfully, taking a sip of his beer. "You've got a point. A kid's a big responsibility, and both parents need to be fully present. Especially my brother. He's got to learn how to slow down first," he said with a wry smile. His words made me pause. Lawrence's easygoing manner often masked his sincerity, but in that moment, his understanding felt genuine. The hours slipped by as we drank, ate, and soaked in the simple joy of each other's company. Soft music mixed with the sound of crackling flames from the barbecue, creating a perfect atmosphere. Before we knew it, the sun had dipped below the horizon, and the night had crept in. As the stars began to twinkle overhead, their conversation took a predictable turn to women. It always seemed to happen when the two of them were together. Anthony, a little tipsy, nudged Lawrence with a teasing grin. "All right, tell me, bro, who's the lucky lady these days? Still charming your way through life? Or has someone finally tied you down?" I rolled my eyes with a playful laugh, recognizing the shift in tone. "Here we go again. You two and your guy talk. Well, I'll leave you to it. I'm off for a shower while you waste your time swapping stories." My tone was light, and they both chuckled as I walked away. In the shower, I let the warm water wash away the smoky scent of barbecue that clung to me. The moment gave me a quiet pause, a chance to reflect. Despite being twins, Anthony and Lawrence were worlds apart. One rooted in stability, the other always chasing the next thrill. Yet their bond remained unshakable, a testament to the strength of family ties. Freshly showered and dressed in comfortable clothes to beat the lingering heat, I headed downstairs. The evening wasn't over yet, and I wasn't ready to call it a night. Passing through the kitchen, I grabbed another cold beer from the fridge. As I popped the tab, the sound of their laughter carried through the open windows. Pausing for a moment, I caught fragments of their conversation. Anthony was reminiscing about old flames, laughing as he recounted stories I'd never heard before. Normally, he avoided talking about his past relationships, but tonight was different. His guard was down, and he seemed to relish the chance to share these memories with Lawrence. I stood there for a moment, curiosity creeping in. Why now? Why bring up stories he'd always kept buried? I lingered in the kitchen, leaning against the counter with a cold beer in my hand, my mind whirling. At first, I wasn't even sure if I wanted to hear what they were saying. Or maybe deep down I did. Curiosity started creeping in. Why was Anthony suddenly opening up about this part of his life, one he'd never shared with me? Then, I heard my husband's voice clearly. "Brother, do you remember Ann? She put up with both of us. The other day I saw her, married to a pastor now. Can you believe it?" The words hit me like a cold gust of wind. My body froze for a moment. Lawrence, laughing, replied, "Anne? Oh, she's always been a wild one. Bet she's giving the pastor a run for his money." At first, I brushed it off. It sounded like harmless banter about their younger days, adventures from before my time. But one phrase refused to leave my head. She put up with both of us. I stayed rooted to the spot, gripping the beer can, trying to process it. What did that even mean? Had they been with the same woman? At the same time? As my thoughts spun, Lawrence's voice chimed in again. "What about that ex of mine, Anthony? We were together for almost a year. And no one ever knew." They both laughed, completely at ease, like it was the most normal thing in the world. That's when the realization hit me. They hadn't just shared one woman. It sounded like this was something they'd done multiple times. Piece by piece, a side of Anthony's past I'd never known was coming into view. I felt a mixture of emotions: shock, anger, confusion. How had he hidden this from me for so long? Why had he never said anything? And yet, as I stood there in the quiet kitchen, an entirely different feeling began to creep in: curiosity. The idea whispered in the back of my mind. What would it be like to be with both of them? Anthony and Lawrence were identical twins. If one was good, wouldn't the other be just as skilled? I shook my head, trying to banish the thought. But it lingered. Was this wrong? After all, they were brothers. Twins no less. Did that make it less of a betrayal, or more? As I wrestled with these thoughts, the tone of their conversation shifted. My name came up. Lawrence, in his usual easygoing way, said, "Brother, Jennifer's stunning, but she seems so traditional. Ever tried anything like that with her?" Hearing my name sent a chill down my spine. My heart raced, and I almost choked on my beer. Why were they talking about me now? What was Anthony going to say? I held my breath as Anthony replied casually, "Nah, we're pretty normal, you know. She's traditional. We don't really talk about those things." His tone was so nonchalant, but his words cut deep. Traditional? Did he really think of me that way? A woman without fantasies, without desires? That couldn't be further from the truth. I had dreams, wild, untamed ones, but I'd never shared them. Anthony never asked, never created the space for those conversations. Over time, I'd simply followed his lead, keeping my imagination to myself. I stayed frozen in place, listening as Anthony's voice softened, almost like he was confessing a secret. "Honestly, man, I've thought about trying something like that with Jennifer, but I've never had the guts to bring it up. She'd probably leave me. I wouldn't even know how to start that kind of conversation." His words were like a jolt to my system. Anthony, my steady, predictable husband, had thought about this too. He wanted something more, something different, but fear held him back. He saw me as someone who wouldn't understand, who'd reject him outright. If only he knew. If only he understood the thoughts that swirled through my own mind, the unspoken fantasies I'd kept hidden. Far from being shocked, I realized I might be willing to explore the very things he was too afraid to ask for. As the realization settled over me, a bold idea began to form. What if I took the lead? What if I showed Anthony that I wasn't the person he assumed I was? That I wasn't afraid to dive into uncharted territory? Determined, I set my beer down and walked back to the yard with purposeful steps, making just enough noise so they'd hear me coming. When I stepped outside, I could feel a shift in the air. Just moments ago, the yard had been full of laughter and conversation, but now, a silence lingered. Anthony gave me a quick kiss on the cheek, but there was something in his eyes, something he seemed to be holding back. Lawrence, usually the life of the party, sat quietly, fiddling with his beer can. Anthony tried to cover the tension by bringing up something trivial. "How was the shower? Water okay?" he asked, a little too casually. It was clear he wanted to steer the conversation elsewhere, but I wasn't about to let it slide. "I heard you two talking about me," I said, my voice calm but firm. "Don't pretend I didn't. You don't have to stop on my account. I'm curious. What were you saying?" The silence that followed was almost tangible. Before continuing, don't forget to like this video and subscribe to the channel for more real-life stories. Anthony's wide-eyed expression showed his unease. "It's not what you think, love. We were just, reminiscing about some old stories. No big deal," he said, trying to downplay the moment. But I wasn't buying it. "I'm calm," I replied, surprising even myself with how steady I sounded. But I want to understand. What exactly were you talking about? You mentioned something about being with the same woman. Is that true? Both men froze. Lawrence shifted uncomfortably in his seat, while Anthony looked at him for support, or maybe permission to speak. After what felt like an eternity, Anthony finally took a deep breath and admitted, "Yes, there was a time when we shared experiences. It was before we got married. I never told you because I didn't think you'd understand." I watched them both, noting their unease. Yet instead of anger, I felt something unexpected, curiosity, mixed with a strange sense of intrigue. "Why didn't you think I'd understand?" I asked, meeting Anthony's eyes. "You've never asked me what I think about this. About us." Anthony hesitated, clearly nervous. "The truth is, I've thought about something like this with you. You know, the three of us. But I've never had the courage to bring it up. I didn't think you'd be open to it." His words were a revelation. He'd harbored this desire but kept it hidden, afraid of my reaction. Yet, instead of pushing me away, his honesty made me feel closer to him. "Anthony," I said softly, "you should have told me." I glanced at Lawrence, who had been silently watching the exchange, and then back to my husband. "I think we can try." Anthony's jaw dropped. "Really? You'd actually be okay with this?" he asked, a mixture of disbelief and excitement in his voice. I nodded, offering a small smile. The tension in the room shifted instantly, replaced by something unspoken, a mutual understanding. I stood up from the table, looked at both of them, and said quietly, "Let's go upstairs." As we entered the bedroom, the energy changed. What had started as a tense and awkward conversation now became something entirely different. There was no rush, no pressure, just a shared curiosity and connection. Anthony and Lawrence, who had seemed hesitant moments before, both relaxed as we let the moment unfold naturally. The experience was unlike anything I'd ever imagined. It wasn't just about physical connection. It felt like we were exploring uncharted territory together. Hours passed in a blur of laughter, discovery, and undeniable chemistry. The intensity of the experience left me utterly drained, but I'd never felt so alive. As the night faded, we finally drifted off to sleep, the three of us tangled together. The next morning, sunlight streamed through the windows, filling the room with a fresh sense of possibility. Lawrence got up to leave for his game, and as he said goodbye, I gave him a light kiss on the lips, a gesture full of meaning. Something between us had changed, though it was hard to put into words. After Lawrence left, Anthony pulled me close. Right there in the living room, we shared a moment of raw passion, the intensity of the previous night still sparking between us. The rest of the day was a mix of tenderness and excitement. We laughed, reminisced, and spent hours talking about how the night had brought us closer. That night opened the door to new possibilities for our relationship. It wasn't just about what we'd done. It was about the trust and openness it had sparked between us. From that day on, we decided to embrace our adventurous side. Our once steady relationship now felt thrilling and alive. If you'd like to hear about the second time we explored this new side of ourselves, at a nightclub that's popular with adventurous couples, let me know in the comments. Thank you for watching. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more real-life stories. See you next time.